HQ, uh, having another interview series event today with Joshua Bauder. We're very excited to have you, Joshua. Joshua is currently a manager product with product management at Three Pillar Global. Sorry, I definitely did not say your title correctly. He is also a certified Scrum Product Owner and a certified Scrum Master. He has a background in digital design and graphic design. In the past, Joshua has worked as a graphic designer at Walt Disney and a training developer with Lockheed Martin. Early on, he started many companies, from what I know now. One of his first companies was in design, and he named it Bauder Extreme Design. Welcome, Joshua. Very excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And everyone who is joining us live, feel free to type your questions in the chat, and we'll definitely get to them as we go along the interview. So, Joshua, can you please let me know what did your career path leading to product management look like?
So my career path leading up to product management was very much all over the place. I went from being an entrepreneur, owning several companies, to working for Disney, doing graphic design for ESPN, for New Balance, and for all of their various partners, to being a marketing manager for a startup in Austin, to being a developer for Lockheed Martin. And I actually stumbled across product management using the quick apply on LinkedIn. So I got an interview for digital product manager, had no clue what it was, and totally just winged it. And when I finally got into the position, I realized that, hey, this is actually kind of cool. And that was about a decade ago. And since then, I've loved every minute of it.
Oh, so my next question, so you stumbled upon it. How did you know that product management was right for you?
Oh, I had no clue at the time. I literally was just looking for digital jobs in Orlando because I worked for Lockheed at the time, and working for the government just wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I was looking to go back to where I used to be, which is where Disney was. And so just rapidly applying on LinkedIn, and I got an interview. And then I was like, I guess I'm going to fake it till I make it and see what happens.
And what do you love most about product management?
I like that it's not a very understood role currently. At least when I started, it wasn't very understood. It's very much a combination of so many different things. You have to know almost all aspects of the business in order to be good at your job. If you don't understand your customers, you're in trouble. If you don't understand the development side, you're in trouble. So just having a complete understanding of the company, I think, is what really entices me and makes me like what I do.
Um, what I know you can't talk too much about your company currently, but what does your day to day look like?
So I'm a manager currently. So I manage a team of not developers, four product managers at the moment, as well as I work on a client as an interim CPO for them. So depending on which side of the world we're talking about, managing my team is more the internal side of it, and then on the interim CPO side, I'm more dealing with the strategy and the business and figuring out what are those next steps that we need to take in order to grow the company, because the client that I have right now is a early stage startup.
Very nice. And then with your background in design, for someone who doesn't have this background, what key concepts would you recommend for somebody to learn?
I think just looking into what design actually means. You can go look at Apple. They are very famous for using a very minimalistic design. You could go look at Google, and just getting a broad understanding of the various design concepts that are out there. One of the best resources is YouTube. Just start YouTubing various design concepts. And for example, design theory is a really good one to understand because it helps you to kind of understand the cycle of design and development and how it all plays together.
And what tools or resources besides YouTube, any other books or recommendations to help you understand the basics of design?
To understand the basics of design, just start downloading every single app out there. I mean, I download probably 50 apps a week, and it's just so I can understand what is currently finding trends. So, a good skill as a designer is to be able to notice trends and understand why they're doing that. So, when you go out to a restaurant, start asking yourself questions about the physical design of a menu. Why did they pick that font? Why did they pick that placement? What is the focus of that menu at the restaurant? And so just understanding those various things will help you. And then just looking into various design concepts. I mean, all the books that I used in college are probably outdated because every college book gets updated every year. So I don't know if I have a particular book to recommend, but I mean, the hashtag graphic design or the hashtag UX, the hashtag UI on Instagram, LinkedIn, um, maybe Facebook, Twitter, just see what pops up when you search for that. And you can get lots and lots of knowledge. I mean, I've randomly started noticing on Instagram that there's Photoshop tutorials, but when you look into the Photoshop tutorials that they're showing, it actually teaches you some design concepts that you need to know.
Hmm. Great recommendations. And what are your learnings when you combining both product design and product management from your experiences?
My learnings, I think, are just how it's supposed to work. So, I mean, with design, if you think about it, you have to have a very good understanding of what your customers or your clients or your users want. And that's a key concept that you need to have in product management, is because without a happy customer, a happy client, or a happy user, your product's going to fail. And so just having that understanding of how does the user use this, I think was very helpful, but also understanding from concept to implementation, having done every step of it, being a designer, being a developer, and then now being in product, I understand every step of the way. And so I think that's been very beneficial to my career so far.
And any skills that you recommend individuals who are just starting out in product management that they should learn or brush up on?
I think wouldn't say it's technically a skill. I'll get to a skill in a second, but having a insatiable curiosity is very important. You should always be asking why. It drives my wife completely nuts because I question every little thing that she says. But just understanding and wanting to have that desire to understand why stuff works the way it does is very important. Another skill that's helpful is just have a basic understanding of development. You don't actually have to know how to code, but understanding how microservices work, understanding how APIs work, makes it a lot easier to communicate with developers because you're able to speak to them in a language that they might understand better. Having worked across all geographic regions, having that common knowledge of development has been very helpful.
And what is your definition of a great product?
A great product is one that is sticky, so meaning that the users want to keep coming back, and it's also one that doesn't add added stress to the user. So it needs to have a painless user experience. You need to be able to go into it, play with it, and really get to love it without going into it and be like, why does this work this way? So, I mean, an example of a very good product is Nest. Nest is very, very good at what they do. I mean, yes, they're owned by Google now, but when they first started as a single company, they were very, very good at creating a very good user experience that had a simple user interface and just allow the user to do what they need to do. Change the temperature, set a schedule on the temperature. Very simple. An example of a bad user experience is Jira. Jira was obviously designed by engineers because it is the most painful tool I've ever had to use.
Um, and what just to add to that, like how would you communicate with your engineers in order to kind of build a product to avoid building a bad product?
So it's very important from the very beginning to make sure that everyone is at the table. So I firmly believe in always having engineers present when I'm doing ideation. Just being like, is this possible to build? Because as a product manager, it's very easy to come up with something that is mind blowing. And then the engineers see it and they're like, this is going to take $1 million and 10 years to build. It's not feasible. So having the engineers there to kind of level set and be like, okay, this is realistic. This might push the boundaries. Okay, well, how hard is it to build the push the boundary one? Because you don't want to build the easy one always, but sometimes you want to build that technology that is a step forward. So having engineers present during the whole conversation just makes one your life easier because they're not going to come back to you and be like, Josh, why did you come up with this idea? It makes no sense and it's not buildable.
So when you do have a project, like what are your first steps?
First steps are understanding the why. So, I mean, since I mainly work with clients, it's asking them questions. You would be shocked at how many times a client comes to me and is like, I want a button that's red. And you're like, okay, but why? What is the reason behind it? And you later find out that they want a red button when in reality they want a green button that like opens up a menu. And it's like, this is nothing what you said you wanted. But if you hadn't taken the time to like dig in and really understand their true needs and the like what problem they are trying to solve, you would have built a red button and they'd be like, well, this doesn't do what I want it to do. And then saying, well, that's what you told me doesn't work.
So what are your steps to make sure that you really, besides asking questions, to really understand what your customer needs?
So the first thing is understanding the industry. I mean, it's very important to understand what the landscape looks like and getting a clear picture of, okay, we're doing fintech, we're dealing with small businesses, we're dealing with loans inside of small businesses. So just learning as much about that canvas as you can is very important. That way, when you go into the conversation with the customer about the product, you're able to have an intelligent conversation because since we're product managers and especially if you work for a consulting firm, you could be working in numerous industries, so you want to have a very good understanding of what's kind of going on there, and then going from there to empathizing with the client, like, okay, what is the pain point that you're trying to solve, and then making sure that that pain point is one that their customers actually face. Since I work directly with companies that have other customers, I want to make sure that it's not the CEO just saying, hey, this would be cool to build. Well, is it actually solving a pain point for your customer?
So how do you manage that stakeholder relationship?
Lots of empathy. I think empathy is very important as a product manager. You need to be able to put yourself in not only your stakeholders' shoes, but in their customer or user shoes. And so just being able to take a step back and be like, okay, how can I better meet your needs? I mean, it's also the same way you deal with conflict with a stakeholder or with the external stakeholders. So, because you have both internal and externals. And so, I mean, being able to take that step back and be like, okay, now I see where you're coming from. Yes, I can see why you think this is a problem. Then you can have a more educated and helpful and productive conversation with them by saying, okay, I get it. I get that this is why you think this is the problem. Now you can have a better conversation about it.
Nice, nice. And then what general advice do you have for those who want to pivot to product management?
Do it. I mean, yes, it's very vague advice, but like I said, I literally stumbled into it. I think product management is one of the few areas. If you can find a company that will mentor you, so at our company, we hire a lot of junior PMs and then we mentor them up. It's all about just taking that first step. And whether it's being like a product analyst or a business analyst, some companies say different things for that title, and learning more of the tactical sides, learning how to write user stories, learning how to do like a roadmap. Just take that first step if you're looking at it and talk to someone. I always am willing to mentor someone, even if they don't work for my company. It's something that I look forward to, just saying, how can I help the next generation? And so if you can't get that first job, then reach out to a PM, a director of product, a CPO even, and be like, hey, I'm really interested in product. Would you mind mentoring me and kind of showing me how I can get to where I can get a job in product? Because a majority of people want to help. You just have to take that first step and ask.
That's great advice. And you do have this Scrum Master certifications. Did that help in your transition to product management?
So I got that more just for the like people like paper. It's the same reason I think degrees are so popular is people like seeing that you put in the effort to get it. Whether or not it's applicable is a whole nother story. And so I will say 99% of companies do not follow agile to the level you'll hear about when you go to like Scrum Master or Scrum Product Owner training. It's funny, you go into it and you come out very inspired, and then reality hits that, hey, I don't know how I'm ever going to get my client to follow Scrum or Agile to this level. I mean, getting them to that dream world that you are immersed in during the class is very, very difficult. I know of very few companies that follow it to that level.
And we do have a question, so I'm just going to ask the question from Nani.
Mhm.
How do you, while emphasizing at the initial stages, figure out the pain points in a situation where you have limited user contact?
Just like I'm reading it as well. Figure out, so how do you figure out the pain points in the initial stage? Ask questions. I mean, I know it's such a simple answer, but the easiest way to truly find out a pain point is one, asking questions, but also try and put yourself in their shoes. So if it's a banking application, forget that you built it and like log into it as a user. See where they might be getting frustrated. Try and find those pain points yourself. I mean, some technologies can be very hard to do that, like VR. If it's not built out, you can't really just pick up a headset if it's not built out and immerse yourself in the world to find those pain points. But asking questions is the easiest way to find anything.
Great, great response back. Going back to your answer with finding, just doing it and finding a position that's a junior product manager role.
Mhm.
If there are instances where it's very hard for somebody to kind of get the first product management role, what do you recommend for them besides the mentorship in terms of like building something or doing anything to get that experience? Because you
Networking. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, honestly, networking. It's everyone says the more you know, the more people you know, the better. A majority of jobs you see, they'll more than likely go to someone that someone knows or someone is recommended if it's a bigger company. It's from what I've seen. The bigger companies typically go to the bigger, like more general audience, whereas the easier ones to get into are your 15, 20 person companies where you met the director of product at an event and you became friends and they get to know you because the thing you have to remember is they don't know you when you interview them with them. So if they already know you and have a sense of your like ethics, your work ethic, your morals and stuff, it makes it a lot easier to get that role because they already know the kind of person you are. And so it takes away some of that initial fear of hiring a new person. It allows you to be like, okay, I understand this person. I know how they will work. I know how they will interact with a client. I know how they will just present themselves.
And you do hire for your
Mhm.
company. Any general advice for those who are interviewing for product manager positions?
Learn about the company. You'd be shocked how many times I would ask people, why do you want to work here? And you can literally hear them Googling in the background our company website. And I know what our website looks like. So if you read to me like the website or any of the pages on the website, that's not what I want to know. I want to know, why do you actually want to work here? So show a little bit of your personality. Allow yourself to like open up to the interviewer. You'll be shocked if you can build that personal connection, how much easier it is to get that job.
And what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago when you first started product management?
Um, I don't know if I would really have changed anything that I've done. I mean, every single thing, both positive and negative, has helped me to get where I am. Yes, I mean, I got fired probably because I was faking it till I make it, but it was that that made me go out and then get additional experience or made me go back and rethink some of the like ways I approach stakeholders. So, I mean, in the very beginning, I mean, even if you ask my boss to this day, I'm very much a bull in a china shop and I like to run fast and break things. Sometimes it's not the best approach, but I think since I have had 10 years of doing this, I've learned the right way to kind of implement that approach. Whereas others that I work with, because I work with a lot of product managers, they do it a much softer way.
And we do have one more question, and I'll go back to my other questions for you. Any particular events that you suggest would be good for networking, given everything is remote right now?
Yeah, so if you're interested in a particular industry or particular market, go to ones focused around that. So if it's fintech, go to fintech ones. But for product, go to like Product Tank has a bunch all over. Here in New York City, where I live, we have like Slack groups. So participating, just be in the community. I know you hear it a lot. It's just building your brand online is one of the most important things you can do. And the easiest way to do that is to just participate. So find Slack groups. There's tons of them out there. I mean, I think PMHQ has one,
Yes, we do. We definitely
and I'm
do.
pretty sure I'm in it. So participate in there because I mean, one of the easiest ways to get to know people is to let people see you. So if you go where they are, it's a lot easier.
Thank you. And any general advice that you have regarding design, starting your own companies, product management, any general advice that you have for
Yeah.
us?
Don't be scared to take a risk. I mean, taking a risk is one of the scariest things you can do, but without a risk, there's typically very little reward. I mean, there were times when I owned my own company that I was like, how am I going to pay the bills the next day? And I mean, you just figure out a way to do it. I mean, the easiest way to learn perseverance is to have that day where you're like, I have no money in my bank account. And you learn to fight and hustle until you can figure out a way to bring it in. So, I mean, never be scared to take that first jump. And if it's because you're more introverted, I know it can be scary. I mean, I'm not introverted myself, so but I know I have introverted friends. Don't be scared to ask for someone's help. And typically, if you do it online, it's a lot easier to build up that relationship before you meet them in person because you can kind of control the amount of interaction until you meet in person, which can help introverted people get to build that connection before they meet in person. So that can be very helpful. And then design, like I said, download tons of apps. I mean, the App Store, both Google and Apple, have tons and tons of free apps. On the Android platform, I'd be careful with some of the free ones. Read through them and make sure they don't seem kind of scammy. But Apple's got a pretty safe interface. So just download and look through it and be like, why did they make this decision to put this button here? Why did they do this feature? And then think about how could you improve that product? So that's what I like to do. Even on the video games I play, it's like, how can I make this better? But it also makes it when you use apps for your daily life, you get very frustrated because you're like, this doesn't work the way it should.
And would you contact that company and give that input?
Yeah, so I used an app. I'm not going to out them, but I used an app on my honeymoon that I just came back for to like track the honeymoon and upload pictures and stuff about it. So that way my family and friends could kind of follow us along on our honeymoon. It had so many issues with it. I think I sent 15, 20 emails to them saying, this is what I did. It was very much a product manager approach. This is what I was doing. This is what happened. This is how you can fix it. And they responded very positively. I have yet to see those fixes be implemented, but it's it's good to just like play with stuff and break it.
Mm. And where do you see the trend in product management and design? Where do you see that going?
In terms of career or market, which one?
Market.
It's definitely becoming very, very popular. I mean, as most people on here, if you're in product, your LinkedIn inbox is probably full of recruiters. So, I mean, I would say just based on the inbox, you can see that there's a lot of interest in product managers. Companies are starting to get a better understanding of product. So, just even the more traditional companies are like, oh, okay, we survived the pandemic. We now need to have more of a focus on digital. By the way, product doesn't just mean digital. There's product managers at companies that do hard goods. Nest has product managers, and yes, they have a digital product, but they also have a hard good product. So, I mean, you're going to see a lot more product managers come out of this. I would say in the next 10 years, it'll still be one of the fastest growing career fields. And then industry wise, I think you're going to see a lot more of it entering more into the defense side. So, obviously, there's some stuff going on in the world that's not very good right now, but it's giving rise to the need for data and for information and for being able to process that. Well, that's mainly digital to do that. So there's a greater need for product managers to help kind of lead the strategic vision for companies that are moving more into that field.
And for product management, where do you see, career wise, where do you see that trend going?
Can you be a little bit more specific on that one? Sorry.
Yeah. Um, in terms of like how within a company that you can work
hmm
during the initial phases of a product and middle phases and end phase, do you see that product management career wise that be split into as more people go into product management? Do you see there be a split within the experience level?
You definitely see a split in experience level, and it really depends on the size of the company. So, your 10, 15 person startup typically is going to have maybe 1 to 2 product people. Whereas your 2, 3,000, 4,000 person software company could have 10, 15, 20, and then it's going to be broken down into, okay, you have like a PM that's handling a couple features. Then you have a senior PM that's handling like a feature set. Then you have like a group PM or director of product that's handling an entire product line, and then all the way up. So, I mean, it definitely is going to continue to grow. And I think as product becomes more prevalent, you'll see a lot more people or a lot more companies implementing new positions inside of their company. I mean, you're seeing it a lot with banks right now. Banks are hiring product managers like crazy, and it's because they're realizing the need for people that understand all aspects of their business to help take them to that next level.
And in terms of product growth cycle, do you see that being split within product management in terms of career?
Um, it really depends on the product. So, I mean, if it's like a digital product, typically it's the iterations are very fast. So, I mean, you're pumping out a new feature every other day sometimes. I mean, Amazon is famous for deploying, I think it's 100 things every second or something. So, for a company like that, the growth cycle is very, very short, but it's very fast because they're always iterating. For more of like an IoT company, like your Nest, your EchoBees of the world, they are going to have longer product growth cycles. And so, for instance, like the iPhone, they release a new one every year. So you have a yearly cycle for it. But within it, you're going to have multiple levels of product managers.
Got it.
And they'll typically stay within that product as well.
Got it. As we end, I want to end on two more questions.
Mhm.
What is your favorite product in terms of design? And what is your favorite product in terms of the need, like as it's the jobs to be done?
I'm actually going to pick a hard good. So my favorite product is the iPhone. Like when Steve Jobs came up with it, it was revolutionary. Do I think it's evolved at the same speed? No. I think it's kind of slowed down a little bit, but that might just be due to the fact that the revolutionary person that came up with it is no longer here. What was the second one?
Uh, so in terms of design and in terms of jobs to be done, in terms of the need that it does for the user.
Can I pick another Apple product at the same time? So, I
Yeah.
mean, I've fallen in love with my AirTag because I have ADHD, so I'm notorious for losing my keys. And the way it just solves that problem. I mean, I pick up my phone and it easily helps me find where they are, not just like playing a noise, but giving me directions on how to walk to find it. And so, honestly, I think it's one of the most thought out things that's also facing a ton of issues right now because of it being such a big ecosystem.
Yes. I think that's the time that we have for today. I appreciate you being with us today and answering all our questions. For anyone that has any questions for Joshua, we've included his contact information. Thank you so much, Josh, and we're very happy to have you today.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.